Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about the new kit reveal of the next 5-star character coming in patch 4.4 of Genshin Impact XIANYUN. I'll be going over her entire kit in detail, seeing how is she designed, what way you would like to build her, how she will be used in a team comp, and so much more. Now before I continue with the video, I am going to say that this is considered leaked, so if you're not interested in links, then I highly recommend not watching this video. But if you don't mind leaks, then I highly recommend everything that I'm going to talk about with a grain of salt, because considering that her kit just dropped, meaning that it is in the very early stages of the beta, so it is very highly likely she will receive some changes, so definitely keep that in mind. First, let's take a look at her base stats. Her base HP is 10,400, base attack 335, base defense 573, while her essential stat being attack percentage. Okay, so this basically gives the assumption that she is going to be scaling off attack. Her normal attack, Word of Wind and Flower, is just a generic normal charge and plunging attack, but her plunging attack does come into favor when going into her elemental skill, White Clouds at Dawn. XIANYUN enters the cloud of trimagrification state and uses Skylighter. Once in this state, she can use Skylighter up to 2 more times. In this state, when XIANYUN uses a normal or plunging attack, she will use Drift Cloud Wave instead, transforming into a Cloud Breeze Crane and performing a dive attack on nearby opponents, dealing AoE Anemo damage. And ending the cloud state, damage dealt this way is considered plunging attack damage. Skylighter, XIANYUN will temporarily ascend forward and into the air, dealing Anemo damage to targets in her path. Can be used while in midair. The leap distance increases when used from the ground. The same opponent can be damaged a maximum of once per cloud state. The more time Skylighter is used during per cloud state, the more damage the resulting Drift Cloud Wave will deal and the larger its AoE. After using 3 Skylighters, including the initial use from the White Clouds at Dawn, she will use the mightiest Drift Cloud Wave, Divine Awe. White Clouds at Dawn itself can only be used while on the ground. If Skylighter is not used again within a short period, cloud state will end and enter cooldown. If Drift Cloud Wave was not used during a cloud state, the cooldown of the cloud state will be decreased by 3 seconds. And here are the scalings on the right, with the Adeptal Aspect Trail damage being at 42% of her damage. And when looking at the Chasing Crane damage, which is the plunging attack that she does when using her elemental skill, the first leap is 197, then to 251, and then the final one at 516%, which is really good. The cooldown of her elemental skill is 12 seconds, which is not that long, I would say. Pretty normal, I would say, for an elemental skill, but not that bad. Moving on to her elemental burst, Stars Gather at Dusk brings forth a sacred breeze that deals AoE Anemo damage and heals all nearby characters based on XIANYUN's attack. It will also summon a mechanism named Star Wicker. Star Wicker continuously follows the active character and periodically heals all nearby characters based on XIANYUN's attack. Starts with 8 stacks of Adeptal Assistance. While Adeptal Assistance is active, nearby active characters will have their jump height increased. When the active character completes a plunging attack, Star Wicker will consume 1 stack of Adeptal Assistance and deal AoE Anemo damage. Okay, so her elemental burst seems pretty straightforward. It basically activates a mechanism that follows you around. It heals you. It starts out with a number of stacks where it basically increases the character's jumping ability. And whenever you do a plunging attack, it deals AoE Anemo damage. Pretty straightforward. Looking at the stats on the right, the healing is pretty okay, I think. A good chunk of health back. The healing interval of the device when healing a party member is 2.5 seconds, which is not bad. The Star Wicker device lasts for 16 seconds, while the elemental burst cooldown lasts for 18 seconds, which is not that long from each other. The initial damage when you proc your elemental burst deals 183% of damage, while the device coordinated attack, whereas the AoE damage when you do plunging attacks, is 66%, which is not a lot, but pretty okay, I guess. Okay, so right off the bat, her kit seems pretty confusing at the start, because at the same time, it seems like she's designed to be a plunging attack DPS, where at the same time she's meant to be a healer, which is kind of confusing for people that play this game casually. But with all of that aside, let's move on to her passives. Her first one, Gale Feather Pursuit. After the plunging attack that she does from her elemental skill hits an opponent, it will generate a vortex in front of the area that she lands that will pull nearby opponents and objects in, which is actually pretty good considering that compared to Zhao, who specializes in doing plunging attacks, one of his main problems is that he doesn't really pull characters in, but more spread characters out. But with this being one of her passives, this will be very good in giving her some crowd control, even though from reading her initial kit, it doesn't seem she has that much AoE crowd control, but nonetheless, this is definitely going to be very useful. Moving on to her second passive, consider the Adeptus in her realm. When the Starbreaker created by her burst has Adeptal assistance stacks, nearby active characters' plunging attack shockwave damage will be increased by 170% of Shenwen's attack. The maximum damage increase that can be achieved this way is 8,500. Each plunging attack shockwave damage instance can only apply this increased damage effect to a single opponent. Each character can trigger this effect once every 0.4 seconds. Okay, so when reading this is kind of good, but not really, because the shockwave damage is the initial plunging attack damage that you will do, and not really the AoE damage that Starbreaker will do whenever a character in your team does a plunging attack when you activate her elemental burst. So considering that this is a shockwave damage, it isn't really that massive than just increasing the AoE damage that Starbreaker will do. But it is a nice chunk of damage, I would say, but not really a massive one. Unless you're utilizing a character that specializes in plunging attacks, either like Zhao or Shenwen herself. But nonetheless, it's a nice chunk of damage, but not really that massive in terms of utilizing it with other characters. And then her last passive is increasing gliding speed for your own party members by 15%. Alright, so right off the bat, I will say her kit is pretty interesting. It's very good that they're making another plunging attack character, kind of similar to Zhao, but like in this instance, they're kind of making her out to be like sort of a sub DPS type healer kind of character in a way, where like she deals some damage, but at the same time she also heals her team. I think from my reaction when reading this, there is two ways of playing her. Either you can prioritize in making her a more of a DPS character when utilizing her elemental skill with her elemental burst, or you can basically run her where I feel like a lot of people are gonna tend to build her, where you will use her in terms of a sub DPS role and utilize her as an Anemo character, creating swirls while also utilizing her healing effect that she has in her elemental burst. So overall, I say her kit is actually very interesting, and I think she might actually be a pretty good character depending on how they change her kit later down the line. But let's move on to her constellation, where I really think, depending on the amount of constellations you're planning to go for her, she might actually be a main TPS. Now let's get started with her first constellation, Purifying Wind. White Clouds at Dawn, which is her elemental skill, gains 1 additional charge, where it's kinda looking like they're kinda building her constellation kit similar to like Zhao's, because moving on to C2, Aloof from the World. After using White Claws at Dawn, Shenwen's attack will be increased by 20% for 15 seconds. That's pretty okay. Additionally, the effects of the passive talent Consider the Adeptus in her realm will be enhanced to this. When the Starbreaker created by her elemental burst has Adeptal assistance stacks, nearby active characters' plunging attack shockwave damage will be increased by 306% of Shenwen's attack. The maximum damage increase that can be achieved this way is 15,300. Each plunging attack shockwave damage instance can only apply this increased damage effect to a single opponent. Each character can trigger this effect once every 0.4 seconds. Okay, so this actually basically increases the shockwave damage that you do when doing a plunging attack when she activates her elemental burst. So before, the passive dealt pretty okay damage to now actually pretty good damage when dealing a plunging attack. So her C2 is actually pretty good, but I think it's still better if you were to utilize this with a character that wants to do plunging attacks like Shenwen herself, but nonetheless it is a pretty good increase. Her C3 is an increase in her elemental burst levels. Her C4, Mystery Millet Gourmet. After using Skylighter 1, 2, 3 times during one elemental skill cloud state, when a drift cloud wave unleashed during that instance hits an opponent, it will heal all nearby party members for 50 to 80 to 150% of Shenwen's attack. This effect can be triggered once every 5 seconds. Okay, so a more extra source of healing, which is pretty good if you would like her to deal a little bit more healing, but not really that massive in terms of her personal damage. C5 is an increase to her elemental skill levels, and moving on to C6, which is the one that will make her into a main DPS, which I am very personally excited about. Cloud Keeper's Spirit. The crit damage of her elemental skill Drift Cloud's Wave is increased by 70% when Xiangyun uses White Clouds at dawn. If stars gather at dusk, Star Wicker has Adeptal Assistance. One Adeptal Assistance stack will be consumed and cause this use of the White Clouds at dawn to not enter cooldown. And when this instance of Cloud State triggers a Star Wicker's attack with a Drift Cloud Wave, no Adeptal Assistance will be consumed. Additionally, when Drift Cloud Wave Define All hits an opponent, Star Wicker will gain one Adeptal Assistance stack. This effect can be triggered once every 8 seconds. Okay, so basically what this does is increase her elemental skill crit damage by 70%, while also when using her elemental skill while her elemental burst is active, it will consume one stack of the elemental burst Star Wicker to then allow your elemental skill to not enter cooldown, which will allow you to utilize her enhanced plunging attack at increased damage, which is very good because this basically turns her into Zhao basically, but utilizing her enhanced plunging attacks, which makes me very excited because I do plan on pulling C6 and I want to turn her into a main DPS. But if you're not planning on pulling constellations and want to only pull one copy of her, it does seem that she is basically designed to be a sub DPS while also being a healer. But if you do decide to pull multiple copies of her in order to get her constellations, it will benefit in turning her into more of a DPS role, especially if you go for C6. But if you decide to go for C1 or C2, it will definitely give her a nice boost of damage and making her a stronger sub DPS. When first reading her kit, she does seem pretty nice, but not really a character that you definitely want to go for. More of a character that if you enjoy it, or if you want a character that can heal but also be a sub DPS. And lastly, moving on to her signature 5-star that she will be getting called Crane's Echoing Call. It's a catalyst, meaning she is a catalyst user. The base attack is 741, which is the highest base attack that you can get, with the substat being attack percent at 16.5%, which is not bad considering that she is getting a high base attack. The passive of the weapon: when the equipping character hits an opponent with a plunging attack, all nearby party members' plunging attack deals 28% increased damage for 20 seconds. With other nearby party members hit opponents with plunging attacks, they will restore 2.5 energy to the equipping character. Energy can be restored this way every 0.7 seconds. Okay, so her passive of the weapon is actually pretty good considering that it lasts for 20 seconds, which is basically the entire duration of her elemental burst, which will be very good in increasing not only hers but also basically everyone else's plunging attack damage, which will definitely be useful in utilizing the shockwave damage boost that you get from her passives. So overall, I would say this is a very good weapon for her, but as a catalyst in terms of utilizing with other characters, it's not really a useful one, but definitely useful in Xiangyun's case. Okay, so when reading her kit, how would you like to build her? So when initially taking a look at her kit, I think right away there's definitely two ways of building her. If you decide to just stick with C0, you would definitely want to farm for the new set, because what the new set does is basically does what she's initially designed to do. The new set, Song of Days Past, will basically allow her to get more healing to your team, while also the 4-piece passive allowing her to deal more damage based on the amount of healing that she gets to your team. The only problem with this set is that the damage effect will only take place after the initial effect ends after 6 seconds. To then you will get increased damage of the total amount of healing that you give to your team. Now the amount of damage that you get is actually pretty good damage, but I just think the fact that you have to wait 6 seconds after you use your burst because you only heal whenever you activate Xiangyun's burst, you lose 6 seconds of initially utilizing her elemental skill and dealing damage right away. However, if you're planning on utilizing her at C6 or higher constellation, then you definitely don't want to utilize in farming the set, because considering that you are making her a DPS, you want her to deal damage right away, especially after you activate her elemental burst. So in terms of making her a DPS, the set you initially would like to farm for her is not really going to be a 4-piece set, because there's really no 4-piece set that kind of benefits plunging attacks. So the only options you really have are 2-piece options, where you can use Veridistant, you can use Desert Pavilion, where both of those give you a Nemo damage increase, or you could utilize some 2-piece attack sets, you really don't want to go for the 2-piece attack sets because she's going to get a lot of attack, especially if you're planning to utilize her with Bennett. So I would definitely consider farming for either the Viridescent Veteran or Desert Pavilion, or 4-piece Viridescent if you do plan her on utilizing the swirl effect from her being an Anemo character. But nonetheless, if you are planning on utilizing her at higher constellation value, then you don't really want to go for Song of Days Past because it does suck that you have to wait like 6 seconds, even though it's not that long. It just normally whenever you play a DPS character, you build all their buffs before you initially turn back to them to deal damage. Where with this set, you have to wait 6 seconds after utilizing her elemental burst, which is the only way you can activate the healing. It's just going to be annoying for rotation, so I don't really recommend it, instead of just going for either 4-piece Viridescent or 2-piece sets like 2-piece damage or 2-piece attack. But if for some reason you would like her to be more of a healer role, then you definitely could go for Maiden's Beloved, or just giving her more attack to increase her healing effect. Alright, so with all of that, taking a look at her kit, how we would like to build her, taking a look at her constellations, and taking a look at her signature weapon, I think she's going to be a pretty good character. I don't think she will be a game changer, but I think her playstyle does seem very interesting and does seem kind of fun. I am happy that they are making different types of character utilizing the plunging attack instead of just it being Zhao, so I am very excited for her release. And with that, that's gonna be it for this video, taking a look at Xianyun's kit. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this, then definitely subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video to support it. Check out my Twitch if you want to check out my live streams, the link will be in the description below. That's it for today, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.